A big hello and warm welcome to my dear students. I welcome you back in the series on Economic Survey 2025-26. Today we are going to do chapter number 5, whose title is Inflation Tamed and Anchored. This topic is very crucial from prelims perspective. It is also very important to know what is happening in terms of prices and inflation in the economy so as to understand banking, monetary policy and overall economic performance. It's a very important macroeconomic indicator. So let us start the chapter, but before we get into the details of the topic, I would like to show you the structure of the chapter which we are going to follow in today's lecture. So bachcho, as you can see, I have divided this chapter into 3 parts. This is chapter number 5, Inflation Tamed and Anchored. So in the first part of the chapter, we are going to do absolutely basic things. So for example, we are going to learn some of the basic concepts like what is consumer price index, what is wholesale price index, what is the meaning of core inflation, who gives the measure of inflation in India, etc. We are going to look at the basic things because without basics, understanding current affairs is not a good idea. So first we'll brush up our basics, then we'll see some new reforms right in the beginning itself because they are connected to the improvement of some basic things in India related to inflation. Then we are also going to look at, in the first part only, the global scenario related to inflation, that what is the global trend related to inflation, and we are also going to see that what are the factors behind the global trend. So this would be part 1 of our lecture. Part 2, we are going to look at domestic inflation, which means the inflation faced by India. Now here, in this economic survey, chapter number 5, there are 5 points which have been provided in the chapter, which talks about the various aspects of India's inflation, which is very crucial from prelims perspective, obviously from mains perspective as well. Now let's look at the third part. The third part is the miscellaneous part, which talks about some new things which normally was not given in the last 1 or 2 years of economic survey, but this year it has been given in a slightly better way and slightly more sort of detailed manner. The first is terms of trade. This has been given in slightly detailed manner this time. Number 2, rural-urban wedge. So there is something called rural inflation. There is something called urban inflation. If you combine rural and urban inflation, it is called all India inflation. So we are going to see that why are we seeing that rural inflation is going in this direction, urban inflation is going in this direction. Why is there a difference between these two inflation, whereas ideally the inflation should be same? But why is it different? So we are going to examine. Next is state-wise inflation. So bachcho, in this chapter, the economic survey has provided the details of inflation faced by various states in India, and it is also examining which factors determine that which state will have higher inflation, which state will have slightly lower inflation. This is all about economic survey, chapter number 5, which is inflation, these 3 parts. Let us start with the first part. So now, bachcho, see this is very crucial. As I told you that first we'll be tackling some basic ideas so that when we start to do the current part, it becomes a little easy for us. So see, these are the measures of inflation that we use in India in general. So wholesale price index, consumer price index, industrial worker, consumer price index, agricultural labor, consumer price index, rural labor, consumer price index, rural, consumer price index, urban, and consumer price index combined. This combined one is also called as CPI headline, or it is also called as headline CPI or headline inflation in India. Now, what is the base year for all this? So, WPI 2011-12, CPI IW 2016, agricultural labor 86-87, rural labor 86-87, then CPI rural, urban and combined is 2010-12. Now, what has happened is the government of India has announced, you can see this is a picture and image from MOSPI. So MOSPI says that they are going to change the base year of CPI, GDP and IIP. These 3 base year have been decided to be changed. So for example, the base year of CPI, see what is written, that the base year of CPI is revised to 2024 now. What is the current base year? 2012. What is the new base year? 2024. Now what is the release date? On 12th of February 2026, which means just 3 days from now, you will see that the government of India will implement this. So that is the reason I thought that we should discuss this during the lecture, even though it is not mentioned in the economic survey, but since it's current affairs, we should discuss it. So from 12th of February, 3 days from now, so what will happen is the base year of CPI will change from 2012 to 2024. And the base year of GDP currently is 2011-12, it will change to 2022-23, and similarly the base year of IIP will also change from 11-12 to 2022-23. So this is what is going to happen. So here you will see in this table that this base year will change. Now, which are the agencies which release this data on wholesale price index? So wholesale price index is released by DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industries. Okay. Now, CPI, Industrial Worker, Agriculture Labor and Rural Labor are released by Labor Bureau, which is in Ministry of Labor and Employment, and CPI Rural, Urban and Combined is released by NSO, which is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So these are the agencies who release. So we should know these things, right? This is very important from prelims perspective specifically. Now, let me give you some ideas related to Consumer Price Index, which is CPI. So see bacho. So now we are going to examine the basic meaning of Consumer Price Index and Wholesale Price Index, and we are also going to look at some of the fine points related to them before we get into current part. So bacho, the first one is Consumer Price Index. So now let us see what this is. So imagine that you are taking a basket like this. What are you going to put in this basket? All the items, goods and services which you and I, we consume on daily basis on an average, which are important items for us, goods and services both. So Government of India has found that there are roughly 299 items which normally people consume on everyday basis, which they consider to be important. So they contain both goods and services. So we are going to put 299 items inside it. Example, let's say I'm putting this pen. Similarly, you can put your favorite sandwiches and samosas inside this. You can put, for example, let's say I'm wearing this jacket, I'm going to put it inside it. Clothes also, footwear also, so many things. I'm buying a bus ticket, public transportation, I'll put the bus ticket also. So I'm going to put 299 items inside this, both goods and services. How many goods and how many services? So 259 goods and 40 services. So total 299 items are there. Now, imagine bacho that the value of this box today is 100 rupees and the value of this box next year, for example, is 110 rupees. So what is the increase in the value of this box? Earlier it was 100, now it becomes 110. So the increase in value 10%. That 10% is called as Consumer Price Index or CPI headline. Right, in a very sort of basic way, right? So what are these 299 items which we are putting inside this box called as CPI basket? So these items are, as we can see, so number one, food and beverage. Number two, pan tobacco intoxicants called as PTI. Number two is clothing and footwear, C&F. This is food and beverage. Then housing, fuel and light, miscellaneous. These are the items. Now in this box, what is the importance of food and beverage? Which means that if I'm spending 100 rupees on daily basis, how much out of that 100 I as an individual I'm spending on food and beverage taken together. So if I am in rural India, I'm spending 54 rupees on food and beverage. If I'm in urban India, I'm spending 36.29, which means as a part of my income, the expenditure I am making, a higher proportion of expenditure goes in food and beverage in rural India compared to urban India, right? So I'm spending a higher proportion of my income on food in rural India. That's why the weight is high. But if you want to segregate only food part, not the beverage part, so this 54 is food plus beverage. So only food part is this 47%. So the only food part is roughly 47%. For rural India, and for urban India it's 29%. So for urban India it's 29%. This is you, this is rural. And what is this 45.86? This is combined, which means at all India level, if you take rural and urban combined, what is the importance of food? 45%, food plus beverage 45%, only food 39. So rural and urban combined, 39% is rural plus urban combined. So if I ask you the question in prelims that in which measure of inflation, rural, urban or combined, do you see relatively higher weight given to food items? The answer is, as you can see, food items have the highest weight in rural, then rural plus urban combined, and then urban. This is how you should know these figures. Now, so bacho, let's take one more example. So can you please check and tell me what is the importance of clothing and footwear? What weight that does clothing and footwear have in rural inflation? So in rural inflation, CPI rural, clothing and footwear have a weight of 7.36%, urban 5.57%, and combined 6.53%, right? So this is our CPI basket. Now, I want to tell you 2-3 things here. Number one, the government of India realized that this basket, this basket having 299 items is old basket. Why? Because we are using 2012 as reference year. This basket was created in 2012 having 259 goods and services of regular consumption. But you understand that taste and preference of people change. Whatever we are consuming today, maybe we were not consuming in 2012. And some things which we were consuming in 2012, let's say that we are not consuming today. For example, landline mobile phone example. Earlier, yes, now hardly anybody. So there are things which change. So here, what the government has done is, if you check the MOSPI, they have said that they are changing the basket. When will this basket change? This month only. As we saw now, that in February, from February 12th, things are changing. So the government has already said that these 299 items are being replaced by 358 items now. So the basket is becoming bigger. So how will the basket look like now? Earlier this was the basket. Now these two combined are the basket. This is the size of the basket now. So the size of CPI has increased. So this, now it will have 358 items. How many goods will be there? 308. And how many services? 50 services. So see, number of goods that have increased is 49. 49 goods have increased and 10 services have increased. So roughly there is an increase in both goods and services. Now the government is also collecting the data related to the price of these goods and services from more number of markets. So for example, if you see the current part, you will see that this is from MOSPI again. Earlier, the government of India used to collect the data for the rise in price of these items only from limited number of markets, but now they are going to 1,465 rural market, 1,395 urban market, whereas earlier the number of markets were less. Earlier, the government of India never used to collect the price of the items from online e-commerce portal. Now e-commerce is very important, so now government is collecting data from e-commerce portal also and towns also. See, so things are changing in the sense of qualitative change, which is required for any economic system or social system to move with time, right? Now let's come back. So what did we observe here? We observed that how many items are there, bacho? In CPI, All India CPI basket, there are 6 items. Same basket is used for rural also, urban also. The only difference is in rural India, the weight of different items will be different. Urban India, it will be different. But we are using the same basket. Now the size of the basket has actually increased. So this is our basket example. Okay? So now, what is there in the basket? Both goods and services. Now let's see something interesting. Now, bacho, imagine if I ask you what is there in the basket, what will you tell me? You will tell me that this is CPI headline. Headline means all the items are there. And how many items are there currently? 299. And in a few days, how many items will be there? As I told you, number of items will change from 299 to 358. So let me take the example of today only. It won't really matter if we take 358 or 299 because qualitative analysis will be same. So imagine that currently 299 items are there. Now, when you take all the items in this basket and you check the price of the basket today and check the price of the basket tomorrow, you see that today the price of the basket is 100, tomorrow it becomes 110. So what is the CPI headline? 10%. 10% increase. But what is there in the basket? These 6 items. Can we divide these 6 items into some categories? Yeah, we can. Example. So bacho, see, here you have fuel, here you have food. These are 2 special things. Why? Because they are considered to be very volatile. So sometimes what will happen is in this entire box, rest everything will be stable in terms of price. Only the price of food and fuel will jump. And if the price of food and fuel inside the box will jump, the whole box will become costly and we will feel that CPI headline has increased, whereas the main reason for increase in CPI headline is only 2 items, which is food and fuel. So what we can do is, let us take this box only, this big box here. This is that box. And what we are doing is, from here, these 6 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what we are doing is we are keeping food and fuel in the upper portion. So here I am keeping food and fuel here, and we are keeping non-food, non-fuel. So for example, clothing and footwear is non-fuel, non-food. Housing is non-fuel, non-food. What is miscellaneous? Miscellaneous is transportation, communication, entertainment, services, etc. Right? It contains services. So remove food and fuel, not remove it, but put food and fuel at the top and put everything which is non-food and non-fuel at the bottom. If you rearrange them, still it has all these 6 items, it is called CPI headline. So what is CPI headline? CPI headline means you take all these 6 items. How you keep it doesn't matter, but take all the 6. So बच्चों, this is your CPI headline. ये देखो CPI headline. Now, we are interested in removing food and fuel. Why? Because food and fuel are volatile and we want to check the price of non-volatile items. If volatile items are costly, we know it is normal. It will come back to its normal. But if non-volatile items like clothes, like laptop, all these things are costly, it's a scary sign. So from this box, which is called All India CPI headline, we remove upper portion, which is food and fuel. This portion is removed. So see, I am also removing the portion. This is CPI headline. I am removing food and fuel. What do I have now in my hand? In my hand now there is a small portion left. Now this is called as CPI, C-O-R-E, core. What is there in CPI core? Other than food and fuel, you have everything. So you will have clothes, you will have pan tobacco, you will have housing, services, miscellaneous, all these things are there. So see, you take the upper portion, food and fuel, and what I do is I remove it from here. See, I remove it. See, gone. So what is there? Food and fuel. Now see, the size of the box is smaller, this is bigger, this is headline, now this is smaller, this is called CPI core. Now, let us break this into 2 more parts. This is interesting, okay? So now see this. This CPI core, this box, let's split it even further. Let us try to see what is inside this. So for example, as I told you, that what you will find inside this box is, after removing food and fuel, will clothes, footwear, pan tobacco be there? Yeah, it will be there. Clothes and footwear are there. So first of all, what we are doing is, we are splitting this into clothes and footwear, housing, health, transport and communication. So what are we doing? We are basically taking points from here itself. This is the box. This box only we are opening up. So we are opening up and it looks like this, aisa kuch. Clothes and footwear, housing, health, transport and communication. After that we have to write other non-food, because this non-food we are splitting into 2 parts. One is clothing and footwear, housing, health, transport and communication. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And what will be here? Now there will be other non-food. That's what we are writing. We are splitting it, plus other non-food, and we are writing the other non-fuel. You can write non-fuel or other non-fuel, same, right? So what are we doing? We are splitting it up. Now this is the box. Why did we split up? Because these items, which is clothing and footwear, housing, health, transport and communication, these items constitute 60% of core basket. So if this is the core basket, these items, which means these items, they constitute 60% size of the basket and remaining are 40%. So if there is a rise in price of these items, 60% items, this whole box cup price will jump. That is what we want to see, that has it actually happened, because these are the items which dominate the box. So we want to see that is it happening that the price of these items are rising or falling, and it is affecting the whole box. That's what we want to see in current affairs. But before that, we want to see the theory, right? So what did we see? We noticed that roughly 60% of this box is these items. And if you look at CPI, this whole CPI, which means that if you take this and this, remember this is CPI headline. In CPI headline, those items which is here, clothing and footwear, housing, health. So clothing and footwear, housing, here you will find health, transportation, communication. If you add those, 1/3 of this whole CPI headline is these items, which means we can write clothing plus footwear, health, housing, health, transport and communication. This is equal to 60% of core basket, or it is also equal to 1/3 of CPI basket. If you take this whole basket, those items constitute 1/3. If you only take the core basket, then those items constitute 60%. You should know this. So, bachcho, this was the detail related to CPI, Consumer Price Index. And Consumer Price Index is also called as retail inflation. And which measure of inflation do we use in India for policy purposes? Normally, it's CPI headline. Now, let us look at what is the meaning of Wholesale Price Index, WPI. So, bachcho, for example, if you go in a wholesale mandi and you want to buy this pen, how many pens can you buy there? Less number of pen or more number of pens? More number of pens. So, if you go to a wholesale mandi, suppose this is wholesale market for pen, you can go there with a truck and you can buy truck full of pens there. So, in wholesale mandi, what will you buy? Huge amount of items, goods. In wholesale mandi, services are not available. Services are only meant for retail, but in wholesale mandi, goods are available, huge amount of goods. Now, if you go to a wholesale mandi, and I just want to ask you a simple thing. If you go to a wholesale mandi and from there you buy one truck full of pen, where will you sell this pen? In a stationery shop. So, where will this truck come? This truck will come in a retail market, right? Retail market where this pen will be put in the stationery shop, and from here the pen will be sold to students, right? Or anyone who wants to write. So, don't you feel whatever happens in the wholesale market in terms of price affects the retail market? 100% it does. That is why knowing retail market is very important, but knowing wholesale market is also important. So, now let us see what happens in a wholesale market. When you go to a wholesale market, which are those items which are most commonly bought and sold? Which are the important items in the wholesale mandi? So, for example, primary articles, right, which is mostly used in the raw form. For example, rice, wheat, cereals, fruits, vegetables, these are all primary. So, primary items. How many primary items are taken? 117. Then you have fuel and power related to power and fuel. Fuel means which gives you energy. So, 16 items are taken. Then manufactured products which is created in a factory, 564 items are taken. These are the number of items. Now, in a wholesale mandi, we take a box like this. In this box, what do we put? In this box, we put 117 primary articles, 16 fuel and power, and 564 manufactured articles. So, what is the weight that we are giving to primary article? Out of all the total articles, the number of primary article is 117, which means its weight is decent. So, what is the weight of primary articles? 22.62 in this box. So, what is the weight there? 22.62. What is the weight of fuel and power? 13. What is the weight of manufactured products? 64.23%. Right? This is the total weight. This is called wholesale price index basket. Now, if the price of this basket today is 100 rupees, tomorrow it becomes 105 rupees, then we will say that WPI is 5%. If there is a jump in the price, we will say WPI 5%. Okay? Now, in primary article, we have two type of things which we use in raw form. I'll give an example to you. So, for example, let's say we are talking about iron ore, which we get in mineral form. Right, iron ore, copper ore, aluminium ore, these are ores that we are getting, and fruits, vegetable, etc. So, two types of items are there called primary. The first is, which means here we are taking all the items related to primary sector. So, two types of items we are taking. One is food, one is non-food. So, food plus non-food. What is the importance? 22.62%. But what is the importance of only food? 15. So, this is 15 plus roughly 7. So, non-food is 7. So, what is the importance of food? 15. See, this is called weightage given to food. In manufactured product also, some are food item, some are non-food item. So, how many are food item, which means ice cream, chocolate, etc. 9%. So, if you add 15 plus 9, what is this? 24, roughly 24.4. So, what is the importance given to food? 24.4. How do you get that? 15 plus 9. Right, roughly 24.4%. So, in this box of WPI, the importance given to food is 24.4%. And what did we see in CPI? The importance given to food is roughly combined, CPI combined, the importance given to food is, this is CPI combined, total weight given to food and beverage 45, but weight given to only food is 39%, right? And what weight did we give to food in WPI? 24.4. So, we are going to write this. So, we will write that in CPI, food, how much importance did we give? 39%, and WPI food, we are giving the importance of 24.4%. Right. So, now I want to ask you a question. If the price of food will rise For example, let's say that fruits and vegetable will become costly or chocolates will become costly. Which inflation will jump very fast? Because who is giving more importance to food? CPI is giving more importance to food. So whenever the price of food will rise, CPI will be like this, WPI will be like this. Whenever food price will rise, CPI will be higher. And whenever food price will come down, which inflation will go down very fast? CPI. So CPI will go like this and WPI will go down like this. Whenever food price is high, CPI will be higher. Right? We know this basic fact. Awesome. Now, look at another concept, bacho. This is also very important. Before we understand the chapter on inflation, see this please. Now, bacho, suppose I have a pen in my hand. The price of this pen today is 100 rupees. The price of the same pen becomes 105 rupees tomorrow. So can I say that the jump in price is 5%? Yeah, we can. Jump in price 5%. Let us loosely call it as inflation. Because what is technically the meaning of inflation? When there is a rise in price of multiple goods and services in the economy. But here the only price of pen is rising. But let us call it as inflation. 5%. Now the price of the pen from 105 becomes 112. If you check the percentage, it will be 7% jump. So whenever the price of the pen rises in this way, 100 becomes 105, 105 becomes 112, you see the rate of change of price is also increasing. Earlier the price was changing at 5%, now the price is changing at 7%. This part is called inflation. But now what happens is, earlier there was only one company selling the pen, now there are multiple companies selling the pen. What will happen? Competition will happen. So earlier only this company was selling the pen. This is the owner of the company. Now there is one more company which is selling the pen. There is another owner of the company. So now what do you feel? That will the price of the pen rise very fast? No. Now because there are two sellers, so the price of the pen will not rise very sharp, even though it will rise, but it will not rise very sharp. So now the price of the pen will rise from 112 to 116. Earlier it was jumping like anything. Now it is 112 to 116. Why? Because now there are two sellers. So what is the jump in the price? 4%. Even now price is rising, but it is rising at a slower pace. So see, earlier it was going like this, now it is coming like this. This 7 to 4%, now 4 will become 3%. This is called as disinflation. Disinflation means rate of change of price. Rate of inflation comes down. That is disinflation. Like 7% became 4%. Now, 116. Now more seller comes in the market. There are many people who come in the market. Now there are many producers who produce the same pen. So now what will happen? The price of the pen will crash because everybody wants to sell the pen at the lowest price. So suppose from 116 the price of the pen becomes 50. It will not go below 50. Why? Because the cost of production of the pen itself is 40 and sellers want some profit. So suppose the cost of production of this pen is 40. So earlier how much profit was the company getting? But now the company has reduced the price to 50, right? So can you check the change in price? 116 became 50. So price has drastically fallen. So rate of change is negative minus 57%. So what is the inflation here? It's negative. And negative inflation is called as deflation. Deflation. So we learned three things. Inflation, which is increase in the rate of price. So earlier 5%, now 7% inflation. What is disinflation? 7 to 4% is disinflation and 4 to minus 57 is deflation. So inflation, disinflation and deflation. These are the three terms that we have seen. So now we are going to examine what happened in India. First, we will see what happens across the world. Our basics are done now. So now we are going to examine only the current affairs part. So let us see what happens across the world first. So see bacho, this is emerging market economies, EMDs, emerging market developing economies. This is world, this is India, this is advanced economies and this is China. So see what happened. If you look at 2021-22, when there was COVID related issues, see the prices were rising everywhere. But then after COVID, what happened? Prices started to come down. If you recently see between 24 and 25, which is our main area of concern, you will see that in emerging market the price declined. So what are we going to write for emerging market developing economies? Price declined. What happened to the world? In world also we see that there has been a decline in price, right? So inflation is becoming slightly low. What happened to India? 2.8%, which means in India also we saw that inflation is reducing. What happens in advanced economy? See bacho, between 24 and 25, earlier it was coming down, but then it became almost stable. Bacho, whenever the price becomes almost stable like this, we might either call it stable or we call it sticky. So there must be some reason that in advanced economies the price has become sticky or price has become stable. Let us see what happened in advanced economies. So by advanced economies, the economic survey says in US the price came down, like inflation came down. So what did US do? US also reduced its interest rate because inflation came down. What happened in Europe? Inflation is down. So Europe also reduced its interest rate. But in UK the prices went up. Why did the price go up in UK? The price went up in UK mostly due to increase in the price of services. So in UK, what did we find? That service became costly. So in UK, you will see that overall inflation increased. In Japan, what happened? Inflation increased. That is why Japan also increased the interest rate. Whenever inflation will rise, you will see that normally the countries will increase the interest rate to control inflation. So in UK also we saw that the rise in price in services was there. Now, because of UK and Japan, if you see carefully, because they are part of developed economies, advanced economies, because of UK and Japan, what happened is, if you look at advanced economies, US and Europe prices were falling, but in UK and Japan prices were rising. So prices became plus and minus, prices became stable and sticky. That is why now the prices are not coming down, they have become sticky. What about China? I'll tell you the Chinese story. So what happened in China is, since a long time, China has been creating a lot of real estate, housing complexes, shopping malls, right? So when you over construct and nobody is buying, because after COVID, what happened in China? The wages also fell. Number two, in China also you see that overproduction of many factory goods have happened. For example, automobile sector, consumer goods like refrigerator, laptop, overproduction happened. And after COVID, all those items could not be sold because definitely COVID impacted the society and economy. So in China, over construction of real estate, over manufacturing of items, but people became conscious after COVID. Spending has not increased of that level. So when I don't spend from my pocket, but there is huge amount of production of properties, real estate, houses, refrigerator, etc. What will the producer do? Now producers will have to reduce the price. Otherwise, will not buy. And why people are not buying? Because number one, after COVID also some job losses happened. Tariff trade war also happened. Because of that, many people were kicked out of job. And the Chinese factories told them that we can't pay you salary. Purchasing power of the people also got impacted. And after COVID, people became conscious. So the private final consumption expenditure came down, but construction of houses kept on happening. Manufacturing of laptop, mobile phone, etc. kept on happening. So now there is unsold stock. Because of that, the prices have been slashed and reduced. And the prices are so low that it is almost looking like a dangerously low situation, which is called as price stagnation, because price has become stagnant at a very low level in China. It's almost like a very difficult situation for the producers, because they have to sell it at very low price with low profit margins. So that is why they say that Chinese economy is not in a great state. But look at India. In India, you will see that inflation has been around 2.8%. It has come down. It is coming further down. Now, let's look at the driver of global inflation. That why is global inflation happening these days, right? Let us see. So what is happening, bacho, is, let's take two things. One is food, one is fuel. So if you see, this is 2025. Okay, this whole thing is 2025. So if you see January, February, March, April, etc. in 2025 till October, you will see that fuel prices kept on coming down, 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 which means fuel price was negative. And you understand negative inflation is what? It is called deflation. And you know that the food prices, global food prices were slowly coming down till October. But it was positive. It was reducing, but it was positive. But after October, what happened? Food prices became negative. So what happened to the global prices? Fuel prices were anyway negative. Food price also became negative after October 2025. Both of them are in the negative zone. That is why you will see that mainly because of food and fuel, the global inflation is going down. Now let us also look at the metal prices. So if you see which are the important metals we are taking, iron, aluminium and copper. So you will see that the price of iron, aluminium and copper majorly till this point, majorly till September, you will see that it's declining trend only. So iron is also declining, copper is also declining, aluminium is also declining, but iron was in the negative zone. Till September it was negative zone, August, September it's negative. Matlab iron price is very low. That is the reason that global steel price was also very low and Indian steel price was high. So India was not able to compete against the global steel price because iron is used in the manufacture of steel. So iron price negative, aluminium and copper also coming down, but around August, September you see that they have started to increase a little bit. Iron price has become more or less stable, but aluminium and copper price rising, and India is importing all of them. So what is the economic survey saying? Economic survey is saying that because of the global increase in the price of iron, aluminium and copper, we will see little bit of effect on Indian inflation in the year 2026. You will see that Indian inflation will increase just a little bit. And when the metal is costly, infrastructure construction becomes slightly costly and industrial production also becomes slightly costly because in industries, metals are also used. So economic survey is saying that there will be slight increase in inflation in India. Currently it's very low, it will become slightly better. So this is the global inflation scenario. Now, let us look at the situation across the world and situation in India. So there is this graph which is given in the economic survey, which talks about the inflation in India and inflation in some of the other countries of the world. See, so what this graph says is that between 2024 and 25, this graph is trying to find out that between 24 and 25, this 1 year, what happened to the price, change in price. So according to this graph, any country whose figure is on the left side, which falls on the left side, this side, LHS, in that country the prices have come down. Any country which falls on the right hand side, its prices have increased. So see whose countries' prices have reduced. Philippines, France, South Africa, Mexico, Indonesia, Germany, US, China, Japan, everywhere you will see the prices have reduced a little bit between 24 and 25 on an average. But where do you see the sharpest decline in price? India. This is for India. So with the sharpest decline in price, because this line is lengthy, no? So we will say that the sharpest decline in price happened in India. And what was the decline in price in India? 1.8%. This is how the decline happened. And if you see the price of Japan, Brazil and UK, as we know that the Japan, Brazil and UK, their price actually increased. And in other countries the price reduced, but India's decline in price was the sharpest. Okay, so this was part 1 which talked about the world. Now we are getting into part 2 which talks about the domestic inflation or the inflation in India. Let us see. So for example, these are the 5 points which we are going to see for India. Let us examine them one by one and let us get a clear picture of what is happening in India in terms of inflation. So Bacho, the first point is called sustained moderation in retail price. So Bacho, what is the meaning of retail price? We already discussed it. Retail means CPI headline. And it says sustained moderation. Moderation means earlier it was high, now it is coming little down. So let us see. So this is a graph where you will see that there is CPI also and there is WPI also. Both the inflations are mentioned. And here we are taking CPI headline. When you take CPI headline, what does it mean? It means that we are taking both these boxes. Why? Because in headline we take food and fuel also and we take other items also. So this is the whole thing for CPI headline, right? So now, so guys, you see around 2022, 2023, look at the CPI headline. Ye dekho, CPI headline is coming down, which means that it's coming down, 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 and finally you will see between 24 and 25. This is our year of concern. There is a sharpest decline. Decline is very sharp. There is a significant decline. Now, we know that in CPI, one of the highest weights have been given to food. What is the weight given to food? We have just done that, 39%. And in WPI, what is the weight given to food? 24.4%. So if the CPI inflation is coming down like this, don't you feel that definitely some role must be there because of food price? Other things could also be there, but there must be some role because of food price. We'll check. So which means, since the inflation is coming down here very sharply, that means maybe after 2024-25, there has been a very sharp decline in food price. Here maybe the food price was slightly higher, see, that's why the inflation is thoda 6.65%, little high. But here the price is coming very down, which means that there might be a case that here food prices were slightly high, here food prices are coming down. Maybe, we'll check. And now here you see the wholesale price index WPI. So here WPI was coming down, it increased, and then again it is coming down. But WPI is below CPI, right? Now there is one advantage of this. Whenever WPI is below CPI, two things come to our mind. First, it might be the case that this is happening because of food price. Why? Food has a higher proportion in CPI than WPI. So if food prices are coming down, what will happen is CPI will crash very fast. WPI will also crash, but CPI will crash very fast. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, if WPI is down, we know that from wholesale mandi, we take the product to retail market. So if wholesale prices are down, it helps in the cooling of the price in the retail market also. So since WPI is down, maybe this is also down because of that. And that could also be one of the reasons. So this is for India, okay? Now, let us try to examine the relationship between CPI headline and food inflation, and let us try to see if our assumption was right or not related to India's inflation, that in India we are seeing a particular trend of inflation because of food prices. Let us check. So in economic survey, this chart is given. If you see this chart and see something interesting here. So bacho, this is your headline inflation. See, this is headline. Now I made it dark. This is headline inflation and this is food inflation. Now you know that food has a very important presence in the CPI basket, right? 39%. So see, whenever food price is going down, CPI headline is going down. When food price is going up, CPI is going up. When food price is crashing like this, see, becoming negative, see how the CPI headline is also crashing. And what did we see in the previous diagram? In the previous diagram, we saw that between 24 and 25, April to December, we saw that CPI declined very sharply. So here also let us check that did CPI decline very sharply. So yeah, because see, from here food prices are crashing. So see, CPI is declining very sharply. And if you check between April and October, you check these 2 months, April and October, there is a sharpest decline last year in the CPI headline. CPI headline decline, an average CPI headline is 2.2%. So between April and October, if you check this phase, you see sharp decline in CPI. And why do you see sharp decline? Because see, food price has become negative. So when the food price is going down a lot, food has a very important presence in CPI. So when food is becoming negative in terms of price, CPI headline is also crashing. That is why this trend is there. Now, can we make a statement and say that CPI headline mimics food inflation? So whatever food inflation does, CPI headline also does it? Yeah, we can say that, as it is clearly visible from here. So one of the important drivers of India's food inflation, one of the important drivers of India's CPI headline is actually food inflation. Now, let us examine headline inflation and core inflation. And bacho, I told you what is headline and core inflation. So for example, what is this basket? This is CPI headline. CPI headline contains food, fuel. What is there in the upper box? Food and fuel. What is there in the below box? Non-food, non-fuel. This whole thing is called CPI basket. So we are going to examine what is the relationship between this CPI headline, and if you remove food and fuel, this is CPI core. So we are going to examine the relationship between this, which is CPI headline, and this, which is the below part, which is CPI core. This we are going to examine, okay? So now see, This is headline. So see how headline is behaving, right? Let us see how core is behaving. This is core. So if you take headline, headline has more number of items, core has less number of items. Headline also has food, fuel, volatile items. So headline is supposed to be higher, core is supposed to be stable. So here what is happening? See, here you can see that core is stable and core is below headline, right? Till January 25. What happens from January? The core has started to increase and core has become now 4.6% in December 25. And what has happened to headline? Headline is falling. How is it possible that this whole box is falling and core is rising? What is the difference between these two boxes? The difference between these two boxes is that in headline there is food and fuel. Food and fuel. So despite the fact that there is food and fuel, this box is value is going down and this box is a stable box. What do you have in this box? Clothes, footwear, housing, health, transportation, communication, gold, silver. Mind you, gold and silver. So if you look at this box and this box, even food and fuel, because we saw the global food and fuel price coming down, so this box is going down, but what is there in this box? Gold and silver. This box is jumping. That is the problem which is happening. So what did you see here? You saw that core inflation is rising, whereas this inflation is coming down, which means that in India, the inflation that we are experiencing is not because of food and fuel, it's because of non-food, non-fuel, which is core inflation. And why is core inflation happening? Because of increase in the price of gold and silver. Why there was all of a sudden demand of gold across the world and silver? People were investing, countries were investing a lot in gold. One was because of, safety, that, the world considers the gold to be a safe investment. And we saw that Russia-Ukraine war was happening and there was a situation where it looked almost as if it's going to be a regional war and then it will convert like a world war also, because countries are not trusting each other. So now everybody wants to have gold as a safe asset. Then the value of the currency is going up and down. When currency becomes volatile, the central banks and the countries, they start to buy gold for safety because they feel that gold is a precious metal, its value will be stable. So because of that it happened, okay. Now, as I told you that the CPI core, as you can see, this is CPI core is rising. And why did we see it is rising? This is a box where you have non-food, non-fuel, and here you have food and fuel. And what is this? So this is headline, this is core. So now what is happening? Core is rising, which means stable items are becoming costly. Which are the stable items which are becoming costly? Gold and silver we know. But are there other items which are also making this box jump? Yeah. There are other items also. Let us see. Check this please. What is this? This is housing. So let us look at the price of housing. See what is happening in the year 23-24. What is happening to the rent in the real estate market? It's going down. But now what is happening in 25? It has become sticky, which means now the rent is also on the slightly higher side. Now let us look at clothing and footwear. Clothing and footwear was earlier costly. Now it has become slightly stable. So it fell very sharp and then it became stable, now it is falling. So which means that which out of these two items would increase our core inflation? Housing. Housing is contributing because it has become sticky. Clothing is coming down now. So clothing cannot be blamed, but for some time, yes, clothing was also one of the reasons. That in the year 23 and 24, clothing prices were also very high, but now it has come little down. Now let us look at transport and communication. Transport and communication is showing up, down because of global volatility in petrol and diesel prices, crude oil. It is called episodic movement. Episodic means because of some event or episode, sometimes the price will rise, sometimes the price will fall. So episodic movement. But then in 25, after April 2025, the prices of transport and communication is coming down. So this is not the reason for core inflation. So if somebody will ask you that is transport and communication the reason for core inflation now? No. Earlier, yes. See here the price was high. Now, no. This housing, yes. Clothes, earlier it was, now it is not. And now let us look at the health expenses. When you go to a doctor, you pay the fee. Earlier, yes, the fee was very costly. Now also it is slightly elevated here. You see, it is coming down, but even now it is slightly elevated. It has become stable, sticky. So we can say that One of the biggest reason for core inflation is gold and silver. Number 2 is housing, right? Number 3, little bit of that is health also. So because of these things, the core inflation is slightly on the elevated side. Now, there is something interesting given in this year's economic survey. I'll tell you what. So for example, Bacho, let us assume that there is a pen which I am taking. The price of this pen in the year 2024 is rupees 100, and the price of this pen in, let's say, February 2025 is rupees 120, or let's say 90. So in 2024, what was the price of this pen? 100. Now what is the price of this pen? The price of this pen is 90. So can we say the price has declined? Yeah? Yes, price has declined? Correct. So how much is the decline in price? 10% decline? Yes. Now suppose the price of this pen in January 2025 was rupees 89.5. So can we say that the price has increased just a little bit in decimal percentage? Yes. So how will you look at the price of the pen today? Has it increased or has it fallen? Overall sense. So there are two important terms here. Whenever you measure the price of a product on month-to-month basis, you check the price of the product last month and this month. Then you see the jump in price or reduction in price. So the term that we use for that is called as momentum effect. Okay, so this is called as momentum effect, ME. So the momentum effect is the price has increased a little bit. There is another effect called as base effect. What is the meaning of base effect? Base effect means when you take, for example, let's say this is February 2024, and you compare the price of the pen between February 24 and February 25, same time period this year, same time period last year, year on year. So if you take year on year comparison, YOY, year on year, then we will see that there is a reduction. This is called as base effect. When you take month on month, MOM, month on month, it is called momentum effect, this is called base effect. So in this case, which effect dominates, bacho? Year on year effect dominates the month on month effect. What is this year on year effect called as? Base effect. So base effect dominates the momentum effect. So even though momentarily the price has increased, but because in 24 the price was very high, we started with a big base which is 100. So now this 90 rupees looks very small, but momentum effect says 89.5 became 90, but base effect says 100 has become 90. Base effect looks more significant. So whenever you talk about inflation or deflation in the economy, it is actually a combination of two things, momentum effect plus base effect. Momentum effect is month on month, base effect is compared to last year, what is the situation this year. So overall, what will you say, what is happening in India? Overall we will say the price is on a declining trend because of dominance of base effect. So the economic survey is saying that if you look at this graph, the economic survey is saying that all these lines are momentum effect. See, momentum effect is there. Momentum effect means prices are slightly increasing also in India. In the year 2025, if you see, the prices sometimes increased also. But look at the base effect. These lines are base effect. Base effect means mostly the prices were coming down. So base effect dominates momentum effect. In India, base effect dominated momentum effect when in the year 2025. Between the year 2024 and 25, base effect dominated momentum effect, and since base effect, according to base effect, the prices were falling. Hence in India, we saw a situation that prices were overall falling and inflation was moderating. That is what the economic survey says. Right? Now, what happened to India? Why the prices were moderating? Which prices were moderating? We noticed something. We saw that in our CPI, one of the biggest component is food and beverage. We saw that. And we also saw that in our WPI, one of the biggest component, 24.4%, is also food. We saw that food has significant presence there. We saw that, which means if food prices go up and down, they will have a huge impact upon the overall CPI and WPI. So we are going to examine what happened in the field of agriculture and food price. So bachcho, what I have done is I have converted almost like 6, 7 pages of economic survey into this table. This type of table is very important for prelims and mains both, because in UPSC, if they ask you a question related to agriculture and food prices in prelims, using this table you can directly answer. If they ask you questions in mains related to the trend of food inflation, you simply have to convert this table into literature and you will get your answer. What does this table tell us? Look carefully. So bachcho, here I am taking agriculture items, and here we are taking the price in 2024 and price in 2025. Now, first we are taking vegetable. Vegetable includes everything: tomatoes, potatoes, onions, spinach, coriander, everything. So overall, what happened in the vegetable price in 24? It declined. Matlab whole 2024, the vegetable price was coming down. What happened in 2025? It became negative, which means in 2024 it was declining. In 2020, this is 2025, it became negative, and in 2024 it was declining. This is the meaning. So see, it's less than 0 means negative, right? Now what happened to tomato price? Tomato price in 2024 was showing mixed trend. Matlab it was going like this. But what happened in 2025? It became negative from August. It became negative, and after August it became positive, which means tomato price was like this. In 2024, it was showing a mixed trend. Then it became, in 2025, it became negative, and then again it became positive. This is what happened to tomato price. Onion, it showed mixed trend, and in 2025 it was negative. Potatoes in 2024 mixed trend, 2025 it was negative. Garlic mixed trend, 24-25 it was negative. So other than tomatoes, all these important TOP, tomatoes, onion, potato, they are called top, TOP. And top is used where? Operation Green. Earlier it was used. Now in Operation Green, all the fruits and vegetables are covered. So what happened to the price of fruits and vegetables? It came down. Tomato only showed a slight increase in price after August 2025. Otherwise, tomatoes, onion, potatoes, garlic, everything is less than 0, means negative. What happened to the pulse price? In 2024, the price of pulses was slightly higher in India, but it was showing less volatility. What is the meaning of that? So the meaning of that is, suppose this is 2024. The price of the pulse is high, but it is less volatile. What is the meaning of volatile? Price is also high and it is going like this. But actually what was there? The price is higher but more stable. So that is why less volatile. But what happened in 2025? Less than 0, which means price of pulses, inflation was not seen in pulses. It came in the negative zone, which means prices declined and less volatile. What happened to spices? Negative in 2024, June 2024. From June 2024, it became negative, and in 2025, it remained negative, which means spices were also not costly. What happened to cereals? The prices declined, and by December 2025, the prices became negative, which means that if this is our cereals, this is 2024, and this is December 2025. So prices of the cereal declined, and by December, it became negative. This is the meaning. Okay. What happened to edible oil? I'll tell you. So, bachcho, more than 50% of the edible oil in India we import from other countries, which means our edible oil prices are guided by other countries' prices because we import a lot. So now see what happened. In the year 2024, I'll tell you what happened. So this is the year 2024, this is the year 2025. In the year 2024, the global prices of edible oil was low, which means global prices were low. And in India, what was happening to the edible oil prices? In India, the prices were slightly increasing. So this is the oil prices of India, slightly increasing, but global prices were low. And I told you more than 50% of the edible oil we import. So at what price was India importing the edible oil? Very low price. And what was the domestic price of oil? High. So domestic price was slightly high and the imported price was low. But you understand, wherever you import something at low price, it will destroy our domestic price. It will destroy our domestic edible oil. So what did the government do? To make these prices similar, when you import something at low price, you add basic custom duties. So government added a 20% basic custom duties to imported oil, so as to make its price similar to domestic price of the oil. Then what happened over a period of time? Over a period of time, our prices also increased. So domestic prices were also high and global prices were also high. So what did the government of India do? Then government of India said, since they are similar, to make them equal, we reduced the basic custom duties to 10%. We said 10% is fine. Okay. So in India, first of all, if you see that in the edible oil, the government of India imposed basic custom duties of 20%, where in India there was slow rise in price. But in 2025, initially the price rise was slow, but then there was a sharp rise in price. In India also price was rising, global also price was rising. So we reduced the custom duties to 10%. But then from August, what happened in India? From August, our edible oil prices are coming down. From August 2025, the edible oil prices in India is also coming down. So our custom duties are also low. Now, what happened to egg, meat and fish? Why we are keeping egg, meat and fish separately? Because this is called as protein. And you understand that according to Dr. Angus Deaton, that developing countries including India, now they are consuming more protein-rich diet. And in protein-rich diet, we are eating the plant protein also, which is pulses and soya, as we can see, pulses and soya, and we are also eating egg, meat and fish. So what happened to egg, meat and so it's very important for us to know the price. There is overall decline in the price of egg, meat and fish, and we can also see in 2024 there is a decline, in 2025 there is a decline, but then from July 2025 the price of egg, meat and fish is slightly increasing. Why? Because of increased demand. Milk price has been stable at around 2.6%, neither going up nor going down. So bacho, in UPSC if they ask you about the food prices, this is your table which will help you to answer all the questions. Now, we are coming to one important aspect, which is rural versus urban inflation. But you already know what is rural and what is urban. I told you that whenever we talk about rural and urban inflation, we should look at something very interesting. See, this is CPI. In CPI, we see that the basket is same, just that in rural India, the importance given to food is more, the importance given to food is slightly less in urban India. So CPI rural, the importance of food inflation is 47%, urban importance is 29%. So we saw that in India, in the year 2023, the food prices were high. 24, the prices were higher but declining, but higher. In 25, the prices were very low. So see what happened is, you know that food inflation will affect rural inflation more. So in the year 2023, see bacho, in the year 2023 till the year 2024, 23 till 24, when the food prices were slightly high, because rural India gives more importance to food. So see, this is rural inflation. So rural inflation is higher than urban because of food price, because food price was elevated, higher level. But in 2025, we saw that food prices was in the negative zone. So when the food prices drop very fast, which inflation will drop very fast? Rural will come down and urban will also come down, but rural will come down faster. So in India, there is a difference between rural and urban inflation, mostly because of the food price. Other reasons are also there, but the major reason is the food price. So if they will ask you that what is the reason for wedge or difference between rural and urban inflation, you should say food price. In 23-24, the food prices were slightly higher. They started to come down, but they were at a higher level. And when they started to come down, in 25, they came really down. So here you will see higher rural inflation. Here you will see higher urban inflation. Now about core. So bacho, as we saw that why core inflation is rising now, especially because of housing, because of gold and silver. So यहाँ पे देखिए, if you see the core inflation between rural and urban, you will see that in rural the core inflation is rising slightly at a higher pace compared to urban. Right, rural core inflation is slightly higher compared to urban. And what are the factors behind it? The factors is the gold and the silver prices. Number two, the prices related to housing, real estate, and also to some extent maybe the health. Health is also one of the reasons. These are the reasons because of which it is happening. Now, in this economic survey, as I told you, bacho, that there is one section which is also dedicated to the inflation or the prices, which is concerned with the states. Now see, if you want to measure inflation in India, you can measure inflation at all India level. You can also measure inflation at rural and urban level, but we also have measures of state specific inflation. So economic survey talks about all the states and compares that in the year 2022, 23, 24, 25, what happened to the prices. And economic survey is talking about that. Now, if you see carefully, you will see that there is a lot of heterogeneity in the prices. For example, look at Kerala. See, Kerala 2025, 8.05%, right? And if you see, for example, Assam 0.16%, what could be the reason? So this economic survey talks about the reasons that why some states are having slightly higher inflation, some states are having lower inflation. Let's see. So this economic survey says that some important factors which decide the inflation in a state or difference in the state level inflation is number one, wage rate. So economic survey says those states where the wage rate of the worker is slightly higher. So those states have slightly higher level of inflation because more money in the hand, more demand. See, if I have 10 rupees in my hand, what will I demand? One packet of bread. If I have 100 rupee more, I'll demand more different type of foods and non-food item also. So that is why wage. Number two, state level GDP growth. If state is growing fast, people are earning more income, more demand. So wage rate and state level GDP is directly, positively connected to inflation. So if GDP is very fast, they will say there will be slight inflation chances. Wage rate is high, there will be inflationary chance. COVID impact. So now what happens is, bacho, if COVID has impacted me, the moment the COVID is over, it might be possible that the people in that state might create more pent-up demand. Pent-up demand means the demand which I had suppressed. Pent-up demand. So that is also one of the reasons which was there till the year 22-23. So some effect of after COVID scenario was also there, that after COVID I wanted to fulfill my demand, I have purchasing power, I'll buy it. Next is share of industrial output. So bacho, if you go to those states where industries are not very dominant and where supply chain is also not very good, which means they are not getting goods and services in their state easily, you will see in those states generally, if the income is high and I am not getting the goods and services in my state because supply chain transportation is not good. So then what will happen? Suppose I am in Assam, I have purchasing power, but because of difficult geography, roads, bridges are not ready, I am not getting washing machine and refrigerator. I'll put a demand, but I will not get it. Inflation might be higher. So economic survey says that inflation is not because of one reason, inflation is because of combination of reasons. And because of these combination of reasons, there is an interstate difference, right? This is what you have to understand. Then the economic survey talks about the future projection for 2026. So economic survey is saying that they are hopeful that there will be a good monsoon. Good monsoon means good production. Then economic survey says that good for agriculture. Good monsoon is good for agriculture. So India will have buffer, which means we will have extra food grains with us. Number two, the government has more or less continued with fertilizer subsidy. When fertilizer subsidy is given, that means the farmers don't have to buy it, which means cost of production will be low for farmers. So our agricultural production will also be high, cost will also be low, which means prices of cereals, food grains will be low. GST government has already reduced on multiple items, which mostly the middle class people are using. So GST is also down, it will increase consumption. Then, and when GST is down, you know that prices are also low because indirect taxes lead to cost push inflation. So GST is low, prices will be low. Global prices are also falling. We can see the trend, we have just seen it. Now, in the economic survey, it has been mentioned that iron, aluminum and copper, there we can see slight increase in price. But this is so minuscule in front of these other factors that overall in India, we would continue to see slightly lower trend in inflation. But because of these factors, it might be possible that if inflation is supposed to be low, it might be slightly elevated, but not much. Which means, what is the economic survey saying? Economic survey is saying if everything is as it is that we currently see, then we will see that India will have moderate to low inflation this year also. Which means if everything is same or everything is in the similar situation, we might observe that the Monetary Policy Committee might not increase the repo rate if everything is similar. But who knows, this is a volatile world. Only time will tell if everything is similar or not. So all the best. Thank you so much, Bacho. Happy studying, and I hope that you revise it once before your prelims and also before your mains. God bless you. Thank you so much.